Welcome to our podcast where we tell stories that'll keep you up at night and in the morning have you asking.
What's sleep?
I'm your co-host Timothy,
And I'm the other host, Bailey.
and let's talk about some spooky stories. All right. So this one's going to be a little bit different. It's more of a ghost story than anything else.
I love ghost stories.
Yeah,
Happy Halloween.
we are getting there. I'm so excited for Halloween. All right. So in this episode, we'll be going over the Russian sleep experiment. Probably one of my favorite stories.
What's that? It's a ghost story?
Yeah. Well, not really ghost, but it's kind of just messed up. I
Oh.
consider it a ghost story just because it's kind of spooky.
Cool.
It's just a spooky story. So, with that, we will get into it. So, to start off, Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days
What?
using an experimental gas based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic and high concentrations.
That's so long.
It really
I'm
is.
so tired.
I can barely go 8 hours without a nap.
Oh.
This was before closed circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. So they would have to
Just the
physically go and see.
microphones? They
Yeah.
didn't have like cameras or any like.
No, this was in
windows?
the 40s. This was
Oh.
way before like video cameras were a
yeah.
thing.
Okay.
The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water, and a toilet.
A single toilet.
A
How many
single toilet.
people were there?
5.
Ah, you can make it work.
Yeah. And enough
Sounds like
dried
a prison
food.
cell though.
It pretty much was, honestly. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were there to be experimented on and, not get out,
That's horrible.
essentially. And they also had enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month.
Okay.
So they had plenty of food.
What about binge eating? Because I love to binge eat.
I mean, that you gotta keep it up with everybody else at that point. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days, which of course was a lie.
Right.
They were never meant to be freed. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past.
Wait, they had to talk about trauma?
Yeah,
Rude.
just I guess normal things everybody goes through.
What were they trying to instigate? Just like bad reactions? Were they trying to
I
make
guess
them
just to
fight
kind
each
of see if
other?
they could remember things and see if they had any unusual like emotional reactions to things would be
Mm.
my guess. Kind of see if, maybe they were getting manic,
Yeah.
I guess. And the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After
Sure.
5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were and started to demonstrate severe paranoia.
Yeah.
So,
They're tired.
yeah. They stopped talking to each other and began alternatingly whispering to the microphones and
What?
one-way mirrored portholes.
So just like walk up to the microphones and whisper?
Just started whispering random things, yeah.
Ooh.
Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming.
Yeah.
He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight.
No. What was he yelling?
Just screaming. Just constant yelling, screaming.
Wow.
Nothing in particular.
That's a nightmare itself.
Yeah. I would just be annoyed if
I
was
mean,
in
it's
there.
annoying, but also like, what kind of a state of mind is he in if he's screaming for 3 hours straight?
Yeah.
Can you even physically do that? Like,
Well,
I feel
here,
like you'd fry your vocal cords.
pretty much what happened. He tried continuing to do this after the 3-hour mark, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks at that point.
Yeah. Well, that took care of that.
Yeah, honestly. The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather, didn't react to it. They were completely oblivious to what was going on.
So they just didn't notice.
They just didn't
They
care.
didn't care.
Just completely in their own world.
I don't like that. What kind of gas were they using? It was just a new
It was
experimental
just an
one.
experimental gas that they made.
Hmm.
Uh, the inmates
Hmm.
continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The two non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces,
Ew.
and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes.
Uh,
The screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones.
so they covered up the glass,
So that way the
so now they
researchers
can't
couldn't see
see,
in, and
and then they just
they
stopped.
just stopped talking
Ugh.
entirely.
I don't like that.
After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought it impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside.
Yeah.
The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise.
Okay.
So they were intaking high levels of oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives they were afraid were either dead or vegetables. They announced, quote, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom."
Okay.
To their surprise, they heard a single phrase and a calm voice respond, "We no longer want to be freed."
Oh, what?
Yeah.
What? What do you mean? What happened?
The gas is messing with them.
Uh,
Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on.
what?
The chamber was open and soldiers went in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them in life.
What happened?
Well, we're about to get into it. This kind of gets a little gross, so if you're a little squeamish, warning, it's going to get real gross. The food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chest stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber,
Ew.
blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined.
What?
All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth, as the researchers initially thought.
Why?
They're going crazy from this gas.
So don't use it. Obviously.
It's an experiment. They're seeing what's happening. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all of them, were self inflicted.
What a wild ride.
Just wait, it gets worse.
Oh.
The abdominal organs below the ribcage of all 4 test subjects had been removed.
What?
While the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place, the skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs have been ripped off,
What do you mean?
exposing the lungs through the ribcage.
So they'd be dead.
Apparently, they were still alive.
They would be dead.
All the blood vessels and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor.
I'm disgusted. I have to go.
But here's the worst part. They were fanned out around the eviscerated but still living bodies of the subjects.
Oh my god.
So they took out most of their organs and
And
just
just laid
there.
down.
The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen to be working, digesting food.
Ew. What food? They weren't eating.
It quickly became apparent that they were digesting was their own flesh that they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
They
You'd have to pay me a lot of money.
Honestly,
I'm terrified.
It's horrifying. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and alternately begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep.
What
So at
happens if
this
they fall
point, they were
asleep?
afraid to fall asleep.
Well, something's going on in their brain.
Oh, yeah. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped
What?
out. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off and an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No. What the?
Like I said, it gets pretty
I don't
gruesome.
like this story.
Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives if you count ones that committed suicide in the weeks following the incident.
Jesus.
Yeah. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and he bled out almost immediately.
How?
Medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of a morphine, a derivative, and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. When heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out to the point there was more air in his vascular system than blood.
Wow.
Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach and just repeating the word more over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell asleep.
I just fell asleep
Yep.
after all that.
Yep.
Okay. He's not dead?
Nope.
How did they not die? What's happening?
Zombies, all of them.
Apparently.
Yeah, no, this is just one big crazy experience here. I hope y'all are prepared for what's to come. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begged for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. Most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative
Ugh.
they had given him to prepare him for the surgery.
So what do they do?
They had to do what they had to do.
What does that mean?
He fought furiously against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. It took only a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Death.
In the autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in his struggle not to be
Lord.
subdued.
Yeah.
Most of them were from the force of his own muscles had exerted on them.
That's insane.
Yeah. I could
So-
imagine just
This is some like super villain minion maker gas. Like if you wanted to build an army that is indestructible, just
essentially like, and here's the
give
thing, they
them
were just trying to
this.
make a gas that would kind of reduce the need for sleep for soldiers.
right.
And it pretty much turned them
And
into
they took it
ravenous
way
zombies.
too far. They took it way too far.
Just a little bit.
This didn't just keep them awake. This made them diamonds.
Yeah, well, it can only get worse, right?
Could it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed, he was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly that they try the surgery without anesthetic.
What?
And did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of
Whoa.
replacing his abdominal organs
Ugh.
and attempted to cover them with what remained of his skin. Could you imagine being a doctor doing that
Feel
and
everything.
the person who's not put under, wide awake, not reacting to the slightest bit?
No, I couldn't. I feel like the smallest like weird pain in my hip or something, and I'm like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me. I am going to die. And he's just like, yeah, give me surgery.
He's
I don't
vibing.
need no
He's
anesthesia.
just vibing.
Oh my.
One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers.
Ugh.
And the surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that it should be medically impossible for the patient to
Zozo?
still be alive. Huh? You hearing things?
Zozo's knocking.
I think it's just my AC.
Zozo be knocking.
It's Zozo. Or maybe it's one of the test subjects.
I'll take Zozo, thank you. Zozo and I are friends.
That's all he wants you to say. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting.
What?
Yep.
Why?
Craziness.
Maybe okay. Theory. Maybe he was okay with it because the pain kept him awake, and they obviously didn't want to go to sleep.
Maybe. That is a
All right,
possibility.
I'm gonna say it's that and not Damon's.
The other two test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation.
Mm.
The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously.
Yeah, I would too.
Once
Stop laughing.
paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given: I must remain awake.
But why? Are they okay? Are they afraid of like dying like that one guy did when he finally fell asleep? His heart stopped
Maybe,
or whatever.
maybe the gas made them into like a supermanic state to
They're
where like they're
addicted.
thinking
I
that
think they're just addicted.
that's a possibility too.
I think they're addicted to it. Doing some crazy stuff. Not even once, guys.
Not even once.
No Russian sleep gas.
All three subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of the military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects.
Yeah.
The commanding officer, an ex KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas.
No.
The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled.
This is a war crime.
Pretty much. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for long term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious that at this point, all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was restraining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might. First left, then right, then left again for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly.
Oh.
Having been the first to be wired for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably.
Okay.
It looked as if he were repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal.
Okay.
As they focused on papers scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped.
He's tired. That's
Yeah.
terrifying.
So he was essentially coming in and out of death just to go back to sleep and actually die.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Not even once.
Not even once.
No gas.
The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed
Sealed
the
in
same the room.
Okay.
His brainwaves showed the same flat lines as one who had just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room.
Okay.
I won't be locked in here with these things, not with you, he screamed at the man strapped to the table. What are you? He demanded. I must know. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralyze when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out, so nearly free.
Interesting. So demons. Also, his response was very 2007 MySpace.
Oh yeah, 100%. It really was.
We are what lurks beneath your darkest refuse.
Yeah, honestly. But
Also terrifying.
but that is the Russian sleep experiment. A little short one, but
Terrifying photos.
yeah, a little bit.
Oh, aren't they making a movie of it or something?
They did.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, it's pretty trash.
Oh,
But yeah, that is a Russian sleep experiment. Little Halloween, little spooky story to tell all you. Hope you enjoyed it.
I didn't.
You did it.
It was scary.
Oh yeah, that's the point, man. Super spooky.
It's a great story.
Remember, don't do the gas.
Not even once.
Not even once. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave a like and subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Be sure to leave a 5-star review if you really enjoyed it. You can also find us on all of our social medias where we post a little bit of extras and some news about upcoming stuff.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as our subreddit, all at What Sleep Podcast. And you can find us on Twitter at What Sleep Pod. Tell your friends about us.
Yeah.
Send in some listener stories.
Yeah, we are still taking submissions for listener stories.
Yeah.
Next week, or actually this upcoming weekend, is going to be the cutoff date. We're going to be recording on that Sunday, so be sure to get those in.
You've got 1 week.
Yeah. You can submit your stories, whether they're fictitious or real. They can literally be about anything: ghosts, aliens, demons,
Creepy guys.
Creepy
Creepy
people,
girls.
things like
Creepy
that.
grandma.
You can submit them at whatsleeppodcast@gmail.com. We hope to read these stories from you so you can be featured in one of our episodes.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.